Hey guys, and welcome to today's episode of Give It the Beans. Now, this is our Give It the Beans first. We have our first ever round table. My two teammates at Complete Strength, we have Corey and Jase. How are we doing, guys? Let's hear from you first, Jase.
Yeah, very well. Very well. Dieting, but still alive. Excited to get on a podcast. You know, in lockdown, I got on quite a lot because everyone was at home. So it's actually the first podcast in about probably 8 or 9 weeks. So I'm excited to get onto it.
Superb, my man. And yourself, Corey, how are you doing today?
A hell of a lot better than Jase by the signs of it.
Yeah, we know that he's not on a lot of carbohydrates.
I ain't dying.
We know that he's not on a lot of carbohydrates, but you know what, Jase, you are looking shit hot. But listen, massive pleasure to have you guys both on. What I thought would be a good idea to do is that there's maybe some listeners that are new to the game that don't know much about it. You guys have been around for a long time and are a big inspiration to young men out there in regards to sort of gaining tissue. But what I'd love to do is just for you to introduce yourself, talk about your career within bodybuilding, your achievements to date, and go from there. So if we can kick off with, let's go with Corey first, since I asked Jase in the last time to kick off, and then we'll just get to Jase. A little bit of a brief intro, who you are, what you do, and what you're all about.
Slee Raw, reporting for duty. I have been in this game for nowhere near long enough yet. I started competing 4 or 5 years ago. Started off as a muscle model, so I was a lot better looking then. As bodybuilding does take its toll, as you can see by looking at, I don't know which one I'm going to pick to abuse because I know I'm going to be getting it back, but it takes its toll on the body and soul and definitely the fucking face. So yeah, in terms of sort of career wins, I suppose last year was my first year as a competitive bodybuilder as a junior. I won 2 overalls, and I actually competed in the Amateur Olympias Spain last year as well, and really got educated in terms of what bodybuilding is about. So taking the next 5 years off to grow a little bit, and then I'll be going back to the bodybuilding when I'm a couple of.
Super, my man. I think you and Jase as well, you're both very humble guys in regards to how good you guys look and the progress that you've made in the time frame that you have been doing the do, as they say. But Jase, give the listeners a little idea about who you are, what you're all about, your career within bodybuilding today.
So I'm Jase, and I've actually been in the industry the same amount of time as Corey because we actually became friends pretty much before his first comp. So we pretty much started out at the same time. And I actually prepped for muscle model as well, but I didn't get on stage in the end. I opted not. I couldn't make weight, so I was hoping to, but I couldn't make weight. It was like a few years ago. That was like more fashionable back then. There's no classic physique. Like wearing board shorts was still quite fashionable. No, not board shorts. Short shorts was still quite fashionable. So didn't do then. Moved straight into bodybuilding. I've done like 8 shows. Always been in the top 3. Won like 2 or 3 or whatever. So I haven't competed for about 18, 19 months just due to work demands, helping other people. As you know, it's hard. It is hard to balance the two. So this year I'll be competing in about 5 weeks. So we'll see what happens then. But ultimately in the industry, same amount of time as Corey, 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, and I think that, as I've said before, like both your achievements to date is one of the reasons why I want to get you guys on. Actually, a funny story. Jase, I may have not told you this, but I met Corey and yourself when I competed earlier on in March. A few years ago, I think I saw the start of Corey's journey when he was competing and was like, holy shit, that's fucking goals. And to have him now on a podcast with likes of yourself is awesome. And to be part of, obviously, the Complete Strength team at the same time is great. But having so many guys out there look up to you both in regards to adding tissue, I thought we could do a little bit of an episode and kind of delve deep into perhaps some of the do's and don'ts, some of the myths that are out there in the industry that I'm sure you've heard them, you've seen them, and you've thought, yeah, for fuck's sake, right? But I think that competing itself becomes so popular. As you mentioned, you work with so many people. Corey, you just started coaching, and I think you just launched your new coaching company, am I right?
Yeah, it's rebranded, isn't he?
Yeah, so what I think that we could get into is that I think there's a lot of, guys looking out for the quick fix in regards to adding tissue and kind of knowing that there's no secret to it, I thought that you guys could kind of give your 2 cents on why there's no quick fix, and perhaps instead of thinking, okay, there is a quick fix, jumper on gear or whatever, what should they be focusing on instead? So we start at the basics. Jase, what do you think that the guys should be looking for?
So I think me and Corey both come from a similar, people how have you progressed so much? I know we both come from a similar full-time rugby background, and when you look at things before gear and stuff like that, when you look at the background of both, it's, we've been in that setup where we said in lockdown, because we were quite fortunate to train with each other over lockdown, we both essentially been eating 5 or 6 meals for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, so when you look very quickly, that's the underlying fundamental, which is it all comes down to your nutrition. And it sounds very blasé, people say, oh, how do I bulk up? You need to eat. And it's a case of, no, you actually need to eat. Because I get guys that say, oh, bro, I'm bulking, and, they send me your food, and I say, even me now, that's why I've got a coach, because if I think I'm eating enough, I always say to guys, if you think you're eating enough, you're probably not eating enough. So there's not a quick fix in terms of, end of the day, using any PDs or anything. It's an aid, so the underlying quick fix is always going to be food. And I think the quicker people realize that, like I know for Corey, being with him all over lockdown, prepping meals is not prepping meals. It's literally, I have to do it. It's a way of life. It's not, it's done 24/7 every single day of the year. So once you get into that habit of it, it's just normal, It's like, even if I'm not doing a show, I'm not focused on nothing. In my head, naturally, I'm like, oh, I'm going out. I probably need to take 3 meals with me. I'll get 2 on the go. But it's always being conscious of, even if I've got no meals and I'm stranded, you go in Tesco, you get a meal deal, you look, oh, I'll get the chicken sandwich, just which has got more protein. So it just becomes a way of life, and you literally just become subconscious, and you just constantly think about food and nutritional value all the time, pretty much.
100%. And would you say that's the number one thing that you see when young guys will first approach you, is that they aren't eating enough, or is there something else that they're perhaps missing as well?
Well, I do say it's not eating enough, because I say to a lot of the guys now, I say, all right, it's great. You eat Monday to Friday, then Saturday, the hardest is eating 6 meals on a Saturday, even for myself now, because typically you wake up at 8, so you wake up later. Yeah. You go out. So I say it's great when you're at work and you can eat at the same time every day, Monday to Friday. So I say to a lot of guys, it needs to be in a mindset. It has to be 24/7. It can't be, there's a lot of Monday to Friday people that can, in a surplus, that can eat when they're at work at the same time every day, because they have to eat. It's eating when you don't have to eat and your hands are tied, When you're out in IKEA with a family, oh, I've got to go grab a meal from the car. So I do think, once a lot of younger guys see that, and, it may sound a bit extreme, but be like, I have to eat at all costs, they'll really see a change. Because I do see a trend of Monday to Friday, people are 100%, and then Saturday, Sunday, Sunday, nope. Even now, like, Sunday's just typically a slow day. I don't want to eat 6 meals, but it's just needs and musts.
Yeah, in the case of sort of crowding it in, I suppose. I think that's an awesome point, my man. Corey, what would you kind of feel you have to say on, do you agree with what Jay said? Is there anything else that you feel like perhaps guys out there are missing in regards to gaining new tissue?
I think the harsh reality of bodybuilding for a lot of people, and I actually said this to somebody the other day, they are more likely or better off, if they're trying to find quick fixes in bodybuilding, to become a table tennis player and aim for the Olympic gold medal. Like, it's not going to happen. It's a long game. We've all played both sides of the fields. I know for a fact, me and Jase, I've been over 130 kilos. I've deadlifted 340 for fun, like paperweight. And I know that at that point, Jase moves ridiculous amount of weight. You have to do it day in, day out. You have to get strong, and you have to eat like a fucking horse. And if you're not prepared to do that for a long time, honestly, take up table tennis or badminton.
Yeah, and it's I'm very honest, and it's why I'm liked or hate. You have to be, when you want to add tissue, there's a reason I'm doing classic. It's an easier route, When I was aiming for the open, I'll shit you not. I used to look at that logbook and say, I need to beat that today. Whereas now, because I'm making a weight and gaining tissue isn't my driving force, when I'm beat up, some days I say, I'm not going to add that 2.5 on today. And I'm totally honest about it. When you want to gain tissue, you have to be 110% meticulous with loading the bar each week and not going backwards on your lifts, you know. And when you feel shit, getting yourself psyched up to go again.
100%. Now, I think that that's maybe something that not a lot of listeners will realise, is that in the division that you're doing, or the federation that you're doing, you're trying to hit a weight limit. But I like that you're open and honest about it, because a lot of guys out there maybe would just lie and say, nah, it's all about this, it's all about that. So would you say that, I mean, Jase, has your training changed quite a bit then, having said, right, I need to make this weight?
Yeah, in terms of, because I am at the top end of weight, but classic's just a class I've always wanted to do, you know. And, you know, I'm a businessman. From a business aspect, I'm like, you know, it's the most marketable classes. You know, I run a business, it's going to draw in the most clients because it's the most popular class if you do well. And I've said that to Corey from day one. It's one of the reasons I'm doing it. So, yeah, my training has changed because, you know, there's without a doubt, you know, so some days when I'm beat up, you know, when I was hell-bent on being like 280, 290 pounds, I used to go in the gym and I used to say to Corey and I'd be like, I feel like anything can move today. And I've not had that feeling in a long time, just because the mindset I've got now, it's not, you know, like if it don't go my way this year, I've got no choice but to move back to open. And it will be, I have to progress at all costs, you know. Like now I do legs, I don't take knee wraps, if that makes sense. Because I'm like, if I don't feel like doing 7 plates, I'll do 6 and go for more reps. There was, without a doubt, when I was pushing up, my knee wraps was in there. I had sniffing, so like the ability to progress at all costs was great, and I'm totally honest about that. And you know, I backed off from that. I'm not, you know, I can't remember the last time I've gone on a flat bench before. You know, whereas when I was like, you know, I need to move the most in the gym, and that mindset's just changed. And you know, it's not the easier route, but I'm just like, my driving force isn't to add tissue at all costs. And I think when you want to grow, you can't 80% want to add tissue. It's got to be full throttle. I want to add tissue, you know. So in that sort of sense.
I think though, Jase, to be honest with you, like knowing your sort of embedded philosophy to training, I think that's a very hard thing for you to do. I mean, I've mixed it with you for a while now, and I can see mentally when you're tuning into sets, like I know that you could do more, and you know, and it's not a case of holding yourself back, because at the end of the day you need to get the job done, you need to compete, you need to be a certain weight, and there is a certain level where by going that extra 10, 15, 20%, 2 balls to the wall, you always pull your balls out of the purse anyway, but there's always more, and holding yourself back is a hard thing to do, especially when it's in your blood, which it is. Do you know what I mean? So it's although it's an easier route, training's in your blood, mate. Do you know what I mean?
And I guess that kind of brings us on to one of the next factors that we really should discuss, which is intensity, right? And I feel that I thought back in the day, 3-4 years ago, that I trained hard, but I didn't train hard, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there that think the same. Now, you guys actually featured in a recent video on Instagram, and I think you were training legs, and that really sort of puts across the message of how sort of hard you train. But what I kind of wanted to ask you guys, you know, is that something that you guys have always done from day one? You know, was there a time period where your training was different? Jase, I know you train a bit different now, but talk us through, you know, how you've managed to build your physique. What's it taken so that guys out there that aspire to have that sort of same muscularity can kind of do that?
I'll be very honest. If you want to be dense, you just got to get strong. You've got to be strong. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, I don't, you know, and I would say a lot of new guys starting out, you have to religiously legs push pull till you die. You know, there's, you know, just the frequency, the recovery capabilities. Like, I don't train that method now, but I openly say, you know, when people say, oh, how did you get big? How did you get dense? It's literally doing that day in, day out. And literally you just have to, you know, want to progress at all costs. And, you know, even if it's not the loads gone up, but the way you perform the execution. Like, I mean, I used to sit and think about my training. I used to log with my training and look at it for about 30 minutes and change this and change that and change this and change that till I thought, okay, now this session's good enough. So you just have to be more meticulous with your training than your food. You know, and, you know, I used to say to a lot of guys, if you're doing leg push pull properly, by day 3, you're not going to enjoy training because you're hurt.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Very good point. Corey, what about yourself? Has it always been the way for you? Has it changed much at all? Is it different now like Jase, is it?
You know what? I've always been very one-dimensional in my approach, and it is a stronger muscle is a bigger muscle. Like nothing will steer me away from that. I do believe that there are variables that need to come into play. Obviously, there are volume has its place, but that is my religion. I think more than anything. I think for beginners as well, to be quite frank, and me and Jase worked a lot on this over lockdown, luckily, and it's that creating muscle adaptation, going to mechanical failure, knowing how to do so. And when you're talking about push-pull legs, progressive overload, 1 rep, 1 set, 1 session at a time, that is the most effective way, I believe, for people coming into the game to train. And it's because it's simple. All right, okay, I did 100 kilo bench press last week for 6 reps. This week or this session, I'm going to do 7 or 8. Do you know what I mean? Over 6 months, what is that 100k going to look like? It should be looking like a fucking warm-up. Ideally, maybe not for me. I mean, Jay still spanks me about on a number of exercises that we're not going to talk about. But I think for creating intensity and putting stress on the muscle, I just believe you've got to weight it. I mean, we've all heard, oh, well, Mr. Olympia doesn't do progressive overload push-pull legs. Okay, but you're telling me there wasn't a time where he did, or there was a time where he wasn't progressively overloading his training sessions. And to be fair, once you get 300 pound plus, once you're in a position where you stand on stage at 130 kilos lean, there's probably not much more room on the bar anyway. So you probably do have to start doing more than 10 reps. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
100%. And I think that guys can often get indoctrined into, oh no, I must do, chest on a Monday, or I must do this on a Tuesday and whatnot. But you guys make such valid points about what it takes to get to a certain point, perhaps before your training changes. And that's maybe something that's missed. I think that there's a lot of buzz in the industry now about what's the best split, right? I'm with you guys. It's push-pull leg.
Simply because it's legs push-pull religiously is boring. That's all it is. It's boring in the sense of in 3 days I'm doing the same movement. It's boring, and people don't want boring. They want change. And I've milked the same training plan for 12 months at one point. And it's just like, it's boring, and people don't like boring. But we're boring characters because we prep our meals 6 times a day. We do the same thing there, and not everyone has the capability to do that. And that's all it is. So the fact the guys in America are not doing legs push-pull, they're just not calling it legs push-pull. Ronnie had a back day where he deadlifted off the floor, T-bar row. It's the same principle. It's just reworded different. And in a few years, it'll be remastered, reworded again, and it will just happen. People want a quick fix. I know James Hollingshead on the personal standard. He used to go in on a Saturday and deadlift for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Now he's doing SST and an arm day. Everyone's like, that's what I should do. No, this guy was doing deadlifts for 2 hours on a Saturday, doing pull, before pull. It's just, things now are just renamed and remastered. And I just think you need to find your groove, what works with you, and do not deteriorate from it.
That's a very good point. Corey, would you say that you perhaps maybe see a lot of guys trying to program jump from one to the next, or do you see anything else?
I think there's 2 parts to it. Number one, something that me and Jase do, choose movements that you're the weakest at. There's always, and potentially, depending on what movements you're looking at, I believe to break the movement down. Deadlifting, and this may be getting a bit too technical for some of the listeners, but it's really, really simple. A deadlift is broken down, for example, in 2 parts, from the bottom to your knee to the top. Yeah. What are you the weakest at? Are you the weakest at pulling off the floor? Are you the weakest at contracting at the top? So why not break that movement down and think, all right, well, if I'm the weakest from the knee up, I'll do rack pulls. I'll get that stronger. And me and Jase, I mean, I put 40% on my Smith incline press over lockdown.
when we break that down, the way we did that, we said, let's start doing dips. Let's do weighted dips. So it's about, when you not changing your training, but refining your training. I remember we were like, okay, we need to strong Smith. I was like, all right, do you do weighted dips? He said, no. I said, let's do weighted dips. And just things like that. And the movement pattern just went up and up and up and up.
I am the biggest advocate of dumbbell work. I did not touch a single dumbbell over lockdown. There was fucking hundreds of kilos worth there. I didn't touch it, but yet my lifts went up across the board. Why? Because I'd done dumbbells for 6 to 12 months religiously, and sometimes your body needs a new stimulus. Simple as that. I hate Smith machine press, but I did it. But I'm strong on that now.
The Smith machine is one of my
still there.
Smith machine's one of my go-to movements as well.
I feel people now. I think it's one of the hardest machines in the gym. It's just overlooked because it's not cool.
Yeah.
But I would sit on a Smith all day of the week if I could.
Yeah.
Could you explain to the listeners why you would do that?
So I personally think, someone yesterday was like, why did you do squats on the Smith? I think there's no escape. I just think it locks you in. You can't jerk with your back. You can't move your hip out of place. You're just locked in, and it's down, down and up. And I just think I always get this term, the reward rate, the reward ratio, the risk to reward ratio, I just feels much safer on a Smith, and ultimately I believe, except on barbell squats, you can load more on a Smith, because I find Smith squats harder than barbell personally.
Yeah.
I feel if you can load more, you can move more, you're going to recruit more tissue and, build more tissue. But the reason I use the Smith, because it's a safer approach, and I feel it works. If you can't get a 140 bench up, what do? You thrust your hips, you twist your elbow. You can't do that because you're literally locked up and down. There's one movement pattern.
Absolutely. Now, I think that kind of goes over a point you guys both made not too long ago, which was refining movements and adapting them slightly to suit your individual physique. So, you guys' training might be similar, but because of perhaps, I don't know if you guys are different heights or different lever lengths, you might perhaps be more... Just a tad. You might be more suited. You might be more suited to, say, like Corey. I saw a video of you. I think you were doing safety bar squats. I think this is when the gyms opened in England, which was a lot earlier than they opened up here, which was yesterday.
Yeah.
And I saw you doing that, and you were pounding a heck of a amount of weight.
Yeah.
And making it look very, very easy. Whereas I would probably more favour, like Jay said, the Smith machine, just because I have really shit adductors and groin and not much flexibility in my hip.
Corey wasn't a big safety bar squatter before lockdown.
No? Did you get him into
Not
it?
even close.
He didn't even look at it.
Nah.
And now it's probably one of your favourite squat movements.
My favourite leg movement by far.
Love it. I think a lot of the listeners are probably wondering, who's the strongest out of you guys?
Corey will trump me on pull every day of the week.
Yeah.
I would say pull would be very close. Legs is very close.
I think legs is split, like some movements and some movements, but push is me, pull is Corey. Legs is like, I think the hard fundamentals, Corey's much stronger at legs. He's just got no gas. He's got no gas in the tank.
Yeah, I can't lunge for shit.
Yeah.
Anything A to B, I'm alright at. As soon as I got a fucking move, I'm.
Bro, I'd see Corey flagging, and I'd be like, "Okay, safety bar lunges," and he'd just look at me like, I'd see Corey flagging, and I'd be like, "I'm gonna capitalize on this so hard."
I love it. Now, to lead us on to our next point, and I think that this is something that I was always going to ask you guys and discuss, because it's changed so much over the years, like you said, Jase, is a sort of, there's not an argument, right? But I think there's a camp low volume and camp high volume, and they're like, low volume's like, you guys are doing it wrong, the high volume's like, you guys are doing it wrong. But I kind of just thought, what are your guys' thoughts on both of those training modalities? And, what works for you? Has that changed over the years? I know, Jase, you mentioned your training's a bit more refined now. So talk us through that, if you can.
I've sat in both for a long period of time. my favourite is low volume because I feel it's the best. I feel you recover. But I've sat in both. I've sat in high volume now for a long time. They both work, but low volume works at a greater rate, at a quicker rate, if that makes sense. You know, I feel like you see the rewards there. No, end of the day, you do single split, right? You do chest on a Monday for a year, 52 times a year. Do legs push pull. You've doubled that to 104 times a year. You get better at the more you do something. Yeah. You know, it's that simple. And, you know, there's a reason I've sat in both of them. Like, now I do high rep. I'm strong, but nothing's getting stronger.
Okay.
You know, whereas when I do low volume, don't get me wrong, there is a percentage of, you know, you will get to a diminishing returns where you will still getting stronger because you can't linear. Your strength won't go up. You know, your strength might not go up, but the way you do the 70s are better. You know, if that makes sense. And I do still think that comes from doing it. You know, the frequency that you're doing it. You know, because the frequency you perform a movement, the faster rate is going to improve. So I do say they both work, but from trial and testing them. And I mean, like, not sitting for 6 weeks. I'm talking 6 months to a year, and 6 months to a year. You know, and doing it in an off season and doing it in a prep, and both, and then being like, all right, you know, when I do high volume in a prep, I get weaker. When I do low volume in a prep, my strength stays a bit better. You know, because the volume's lower. You know, the amount of movements I'm doing is lower, so I can really tune in and acute. So being a person that's done it for like 6 to 12 months. I would definitely say they both work, but the rate they work at is great. And, you know, if you're happy plodding along at your rate of gain, by all means, but, you know, it needs a must how fast you want to progress.
Absolutely. What about yourself, Corey? What's your thoughts on the low volume, high volume approach?
Low volume.
Love it. Talk us through why.
It works. I think for me, like I said, my philosophy has always been stronger muscle is a bigger muscle. I'll repeat that over and over and over again.
I've never seen someone squat 5 plates for small legs.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I've seen guys press 500 kilo for 20 reps and they've got small legs.
I just believe that, I mean, that's my philosophy through and through. It's in my blood, but it's also what I enjoy doing. I think enjoyment breeds adherence. And for me, although bodybuilding and competing is something I would die for because I fucking love doing it, my enjoyment comes from training. And if I'm not going in the gym and I'm not doing something I enjoy, i.e. getting stronger and progressing in that manner, then the adherence would eventually fall off. I'd start questioning. And I have done. I've done the high volume stuff, and although it's good and it creates a stimulus and it does work, but seeing those numbers coming in week out after, like Jay says, a 6-month stint in a logbook, rep in, rep out, coming in and realizing that warm up is now that working set, top set is now your warm up, and you can throw it around like paperweight. That for me is where it's at.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you guys, but I just wanted to see your take on, because over the years, like when I knew fuck all, and I still probably know fuck all in comparison to how much there is to know, I was doing chest on a Monday, I was doing back on a Tuesday, and yeah, it helped me build a little bit of tissue, but when you talk about enjoyment, I think that's what it all boils down to. And you both strike me as a couple of nutters that love getting fucking strong. Well, Corey certainly does when I see some of his preset hypes.
Half of me is like, I hope the show doesn't go my way so I can just push to the open.
and I hope it does go his way so he doesn't go into open class and I don't ever have to stand on stage next to him.
No, there's a feeling like, there's a crazy feeling like, you know, about just being strong and going in and being like, that's going to move today. And, you know, the endorphins and stuff you get from that, I think, from strength training trumps. Like I always say, I've said to Corey from day one, I don't like being in state condition. I don't like the look. Like for me personally, it's not a man's man. You know, I come from a rugby background where bigger is better and stuff like that. I do a show, I get lean, I reverse very quickly, and I don't stay tight because I don't like the look, you know, and I like the feeling of being strong over the aesthetic look.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Everyone always like, and you probably get the mess. I'm sure you guys get the messages on Instagram that when you be lean, people are messaging you being like, "Whoa, that looks fucking amazing," blah blah. And do you ever just read them and kind of go, "Nah, this is fucking shit."
Fucking shit, yeah.
You have no idea. No idea.
I prefer being so like even if it don't like whatever happens this year, I will take a long time out. And I've said to a few people, I said to my partner this week, I don't know if I will compete again, because it's just I say this now because I'm dieting probably, but when you're dieting, you just want to be strong. When you're strong, you want to be dieting, and it's just a crazy cycle.
I think that maybe it would be kind of, I know it's a bit off topic where we're going to go down, but talk the listeners through about just that mental battle. How, I mean, you guys are probably never content with how you look when you're lean, right? And you're probably never content when you're off season.
I was actually said to my partner this morning, said I feel like I look terrible. Then I went and checked in and then texted her and said, you know what, I feel I look a bit better than I thought this morning.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the mind games with. You guys have both been above 130 kilos, you mentioned. I've been 2 kilos away from that, and I felt horrendous, right? And just in regards to how slow my ankles became, how I got out of breath walking up a hill. But talk us, just opposed to talking about prep, talk us through, what does it actually feel like? For the listeners out there that are just sort of getting into bodybuilding, what does it feel like when you're up at 130 kilos or whatever weight someone's pushing up to their max? Talk us through what the reality of that is.
I know me Corey are very similar. So probably I was 128 probably about 2 years ago. Corey was 130 plus 2 years ago. I know we were both in off season together, training together. We both didn't push up. We both pushed up. I pushed up to 120 and was like, I'm happy here. Corey pushed up to about 115 and was like, I'm happy here. So we both pushed up to under 10 kilos of that max just because the feeling is horrendous. We both said, we got to a point where it was like, this is quite a happy spot. Whereas look, the feeling's not nice, This is first off season. I've never got a lower back pump, which is horrendous.
So those sort of side effects is what I'm trying to really dig deep into. Talk
so
us
like
what it feels.
Yeah, like my joints hurt 24/7. I'd walk down the road, my lower back would sweat, which is horrible. And just stuff like I was tired all day, sleep all day. Like any opportunity, I'd sleep. It just wasn't enjoyable, and then you're constantly thinking about food and tying your shoe. I remember putting on shoes used to be a ball ache.
I remember I was pushing like 132 at one point, and I had to go out for a meal, and I was intent of putting these tassel loafers on, right? Not a chance in hell. I was going to wear flip flops. I didn't even bother going. I thought, you know what? I just look like an elephant, and that's what it gets to. And I think there comes a time where how productive is this push? Am I just being greedy now? Am I just eating for the fun of it? And Jase will say, and it comes down for me again. It comes down to performance. Anything can move. That's great, but how much are you getting out of that session? If you can go in, you can squat 7 plates. If you can go in, you can deadlift 7 plates. You can bench press 200 kilos. Great. Okay. How much stress are you putting on those muscles underneath what is actually there? Do you know what I mean? Which is water, a shitload of fat. And again, if you are planning on prepping again, when you are out of shape, really out of shape, it's going to take a long time. And that 130 kilos doesn't look like 130 kilos once you're prepped. So is it really worth doing?
Yeah. Such a good point, because this time around, I had never really pushed above 120. I didn't know what it felt like. And when I went to 120, I was just like, I worked with Cal, and he had said, we'll push you to 300. And I was just like, I can't eat anymore. I was at a physical.
I don't know if you know, I worked with Callum as well.
Right, okay.
And I worked with Callum in the year I got my heaviest. And, I remember texting one day and was like, mate, I'm on we was on 1,300 grams of carb. And I was just like, I remember saying, I was just like, mate, this is a lot of food. It's a lot of food. Like, I remember it was like, if I looked at another serene loaf, there's only so much you can eat. So it was actually with Callum where I did that massive push, and then Callum made me realize, like, to push, you need to be very acute and on the ball day in. Like, I'd always eaten a lot of food, but it was like the hardest thing was me eating a lot on my rest day. That's what changed a lot.
Right. Absolutely. What about yourself, Corey?
For me, managing appetite on an off season, I've never really had too much of an issue with it. I'm a piglet. Like, I can eat. But something that I've realised this year, which I've never done before, is adjusting the variables slightly, keeping cardio in, for example. Things that digestion aids. Do you know what I mean? GDAs, making the process more productive for yourself. Those supports haven't been created by accident. They're there for a reason. But you'll notice, I mean, Jase has obviously already said, and you'll see it on his Instagram, he doesn't do cardio. He's 5 weeks out. That's alien. The reason why he's in that position is because we kept cardio in over lockdown. He was still exercising. He pushed food. He trained hard. He kept cardio in. And now he's in a position where his body's responsive enough so you don't have to do it. Happy days. That is the perfect reality of a prep. Although he's dragging ass, he could be on the Stairmaster for 2 hours a day.
Yeah, no, it's 100% true. And it's just, once you become a bit more experienced, you get to a point in off season, you say, what's actually quality weight? Like, now I tell the guys, if you're 120 and you're performing at 128, why do you want to be 128? Yeah. So you get to a point, and when you get a bit older as well, you're like, quality of tissue, the quality of the scale weight trumps the scale weight, if that makes sense. Like, the quality at 120, if it's better than 128, I'll never push up to 128 ever again.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think if we didn't discuss the next one, people would be DMing me, and that was the case of that. There's a lot of guys out there that think that the all secret answer, the holy grail, is just jumping on a bit of gear. And, and personally, I probably started using them far too early on in my career. That I wasn't even tracking food, wasn't even tracking sort of logbooking, focusing on recovery, anything like that. I just thought some guy called Big Davey on this forum said, take 800 milligrams of test. That's what you need to take to get big. So I'll do just that. Is it something that do you think you guys see a lot of that, or is it a case of that the industry with education, kind of progressing year in, year out? Do you think there's been a little bit of a flick of the switch, or do you still see that going on today?
I think forums, I say it now, I feel like sites like JP's, I feel like they need to be encrypted. I don't think you should just be able to to sign up and be able to have access to this information. Okay,
that's a strong opinion. Talk us through that, my man.
I feel like these sites need to be encrypted because, not for the content that's being put out, but the education of the people accessing this site are not looking at this and saying, this guy's been training 5 years.
Yeah.
Guys are 18 looking at this info, which is amazing info, but they're not being, how does this apply to me? Where does this affect me in my journey? I do Q&As and, sometimes I ask a gear question, sometimes I don't. And the reason I don't is if someone asks me a gear question, what's my first cycle? My reply is, what's your food? If they can't tell me their food, I say, learn your food and ask me in 3 months. You should know your diet off the top of your head before you know your cycle. And that's I say it to all young guys. If they say, oh, I want to go on cycle, I say, what you eating? Well, I don't know what I'm eating, but I want to know what I want to take. I say, you've got it wrong.
Yeah, that's a solid point, man. What about yourself, Corey?
I completely agree. I started taking gear far too early. Before I pretty close actually. I just got it force fed to me. No, I didn't, to be fair, because I wanted to do it because I was passionate about developing and getting better. Old school gym, sawdust, fucking rust, blood, sweat, converted fire station. It was a shithole. But a couple of Mr. Wales competitors have trained in there, and great guys, looked amazing. But I was 15. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Not in a position where I should have even been looking at that. I couldn't even train. and it's just people just overlook the fact, and I did, because everyone wants a quick fix, and at the time you got guys in the game who are amazing. You're seeing in Muscle and Fitness magazines, and you're like, "Whoa, I want to look like that by when I go on holiday next summer." Like, what? It's not going to happen.
Where you are in your journey ever.
No.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I get a lot from the guys. What's my first cycle? I say, what AIs are you going to use? And you know what the reply is? What's an AI, bro?
Yeah.
Like, you just have you're in no position to be considering. So I just think it's great. There's a lot of info out there, and it's not the people putting the info out, it's the people reading the info are a bit naive and not saying, you know, how does this apply to me? You know.
Yeah.
I think there's just, it's very hard for people to see the wood from the trees, and if you haven't been in the game long enough, the information you're hearing, whether it be from Big Dave in the gym, do you know what I mean, who's got 5,000 D-ball in his bag ready to hand them out like Skittles, or whether it's on JP's site, are you in a position where you should really be taking that information on? And you guys will know because you've been coaching for a long time, but I've noticed more and more in the past couple of months, people coming through, asking questions and pushing it, and I'm like, mate, there is not a chance in hell. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm not in a position where I should be off, where I should really, anyone should be. Do you know what I mean? I've got enough experience for myself, and I'm certainly competent on the subject. But mate, you don't even know what progressive overload is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Do not.
It should be the law.
For a cycle.
It should be the law. And I see a trend, I'll be very honest, like my cycle, I've never used more than 900 milligrams a test, ever. And I've been 120. There is a cool little trend from younger lads now to say, I run a gram a test. And I think, I've heard, bro, I run a gram a test. And I just look and I'm confused because I feel like there's a trend, you know, it's a cool trend, and it's not.
Yeah.
You know, it's not maximizing the least is probably better, but you know, and it baffles me. It baffles me. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you should mention that. I spoke to John Meadows a few weeks ago, and he kind of said that back in his day, doses were nowhere near as high as they are. I mean, of course, in the pro league, but he says, you know, some guys in the pro league are taking like 2 grams a week, and I'm just like, what? But for like at the time when I first started using them, it was a case of I don't think someone like Jordan's site existed. It was just sort of muscle forum, whatever it was, and I think I just took that word as gospel. And you know, when I wanted to come off, you know, I had a mate that was like, take these PCT tablets and you'll be fine. I'm like, oh sweet, bro.
Yeah.
That's cool. And I was like, you know, can I still have my cheat day? And, you know, obviously that kind of just shows how naive I was at the time. But you guys make such valid points. And I've never actually thought of it that way, Jase, when you said that those sites perhaps should be encrypted and the information is really available and it's amazing. But a lot of guys that maybe at the consideration stage, because of the abundance of information, maybe perhaps are more than likely to jump at that opportunity than hold back and focus on everything else, right?
If you and Corey are accessing it and saying, we're experienced, been in the game 5 years, all right, this dosage, maybe I'll micro-load this a little bit, or, these young guys are coming out from doing an 8-week course and saying, fuck, I'm going from 300 gram a test, right, let's go 750. You know, because I'm quite in the loop with the younger guys, I prep a lot of the younger guys, and, you know, some of the consultations I get, and I'm like, wow, you know, I'm absolutely like, wow. You know, and I know what some of the pros are doing. You know, I've got a diet from Milosavec, and I've looked at the cycle, and I've emailed back, and I said this to Corey, I emailed back, is this a typo? You know, and, you know, I know the cycles that are being done when people want to go into the pro league. Yeah. And I know the cycles that are being done by people that shouldn't even be doing cycles. So it's crazy in that regard because it's not a regulated industry. So ultimately you can do what you want unless you've got a good coach that will say, you know what, mate, you're 170 pounds, you don't need to do a grammar test.
Yeah, yeah. That's
some of the consultations that I've had and client questionnaires that have come back, like, if you're taking anything, what are you taking and how much of it? And I think, what the fuck? Who advised you with that? Where is that going? You're better off spending that money, hundreds of pounds going on gear, and it doesn't even look like you go to the gym.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I say that respectfully, because unfortunately, like I said, the information that is available, although it's very, very useful for the people that can understand it, for the people that don't, and again, don't prioritize nutrition and training first, or don't maximize those variables first, it's just a shit road to be going down.
The gear use in I don't know where it is where you are in Scotland, born, but you know, me and Corey, essentially, we're from London and Essex. You know, Essex, everyone wants to look good. Like, I say to people that are not in the industry, go into a gym in Essex, 95% of people are using the gear. No, but like, if you've been Essex or London, like, everyone's using gear. Like, everyone's. Corey, correct me if I'm wrong, because, you know, we're in the industry now where people want to look good now.
Yeah.
100%.
You know, in London and Essex, I say to people that are not from there, like, you know, when I first went in the gym, I used to be like, no one uses gear. I go in the gym, I look around and say 95. The guys you don't think are using gear are still using gear.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. People outside, like, a lot of the guys in the industry are from, like, Yorkshire and stuff. But I say, when you come to London and Essex, and, you know, in Essex alone, there's 20, 30 gyms, everyone is using gear, and it's more accessible than you think, and there's more people than you think are actually using. And it's very shallow. It's just because we're in an industry now where everyone wants to look good, and TV and stuff don't help, you know, and it's just so accessible on sites. You know, if I wanted to learn a first cycle now, just type in Google and I'll start tomorrow. You know, when we started, it wasn't accessible. No. You know, I had to read a magazine and be like, you know, how do I do a contest prep? All right, I eat white fish for 16 weeks in the magazine. Now everything you can just look like this.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I'm not too sure I would fit in down in Essex and London. I'm not really the best looker. You know what I mean? So what looking good.
I know you would. I know a great spray tannist. She's brilliant.
Yeah,
she's fitting like straight away.
Superb. Now, I guess that kind of leads us on to one of the sort of final questions or topics of discussion, which would be, you know, you guys have dropped a lot of knowledge bombs, a lot of sort of like raw advice about what guys perhaps not should or shouldn't do, but perhaps should take it into consideration. But if I could ask you guys both your 3 top tips. Now, if they're the same, that's fine. But let's start off with Corey first, because Jase, you tend to go and Corey agrees with you. So I want to put him on the spot here and see if he can come up with it. So 3 top tips for guys out there who want to add muscle. Corey, what would they be for yourself? And you could be as blunt as you want or as lengthy as you want.
Learn how to create mechanical failure.
Yeah.
That's it. I think learn how to train. Learn how to take it there. Every session. Learn how to tune in. Learn how to visualize. I have dreams about lifts. It's vile. But I do. Training with Jase. If you can't make yourself nervous to train, whatever body part you're training the next day, then you need to question it. And I think that's the most important thing for me. That is every client I've ever had, every person I've ever spoke to in the gym, my passion comes from training. And for me, it's learning how to tune in and create as much tension and as much stress as you possibly can on the muscle you're training, whether you're doing high volume or low volume. That would be number 1. Sure. Number 2, I think learn how to diet. They're very simple. It's training and nutrition. But I think learning how to diet, i.e. for your specific goal, read, educate yourself. Do you know what a calorie deficit is? Yeah,
mate, I think you make some awesome points. Jase, what about yourself?
Mine's going to be a bit different. It's just doing the same over and over, and just finding a formula and, you know, doing the same over and over. And I talk of that, like, if you don't, I'm going to be very blunt, if you don't like cream of rice, don't fucking eat it because everyone's eating it. Find food that works for you. Find food. My diet, Corey will tell you, My only carb source is rice. Why? Rice works for me. I don't care if 50 people on Instagram are doing flavored cream rice. If you don't like it, don't eat it. You know, find something that works for you, stick with it. Same with gear. My gear cycle season has not changed. The compounds have not changed because I look and I say, this is working. I don't change. It's test and bold on. I've not used MPP. I've not used any other cycle. Like, it don't change. So find a cycle that works for you. Find food sources that work for you. Find a training plan that works for you, and just milk it. You know, just milk it as long as you can, and don't change it, and just stick to it. And you will see results. You'll see things come. Because people say, "Oh yeah, I ran this for 8 weeks, but I'm going to try this," and I say, "Why? Why? You got stronger. You got bigger. Why?" So it's finding it, and it's boring. Being the same is boring. Doing the same day in, day out, boring. But bodybuilding is boring sport. Bodybuilders are boring.
I think you've got to learn to love the game, haven't you?
Yeah, and it's just do the same and just be consistent with everything you want to do. You know, just keep everything the same and stay consistent. Yes, refine it. You know, refine your dosage or refine your training movements, but keep all the fundamentals the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know you guys were short for time because of some internet issues up here in Scotland and also down south where Corey is. But what I'd like you guys to do is, if you can, if the listeners want to check you out after listening to this episode, just if you could drop, say, your Instagram handle or your website where they can get in touch with you, that'd be fantastic. So, Jase, we'll start with you.
Just find me on Instagram, Jase_345. I don't know why. Someone said, why has it got 345 at the end? It's just the username Instagram gave me and I ran with it. No, so just give me a follow on there. I'm competing, so check it out. I like to do a lot of Q&As and be very honest and with my approach. So if you're interested, just give me a follow. And if you drop me a DM and say, "Oh, I followed you from Vaughn's podcast," I will follow you back. Instagram doesn't bother me that much.
Superb, my man. And Corey, what about yourself?
So you can find me on Slee Raw. That's my personal page, or raw.coaching is my coaching page. Again, drop me a DM. Any questions off the back of this podcast? I'll be more than happy to speak to you in a bit more depth about anything you want to know.
Superb, man. Listen, a massive thank you from myself and from all the listeners, and I'm sure thank you from all the young guys out there who aspire, to look like you guys and are motivated. But I think I could safely say, whether it is from Scotland, Essex, or London, that from me, myself, from Jase, from Corey, give it a bean.